I think that we finally have gotten our first guest here, so excited to have her on when she comes around the studio corner here. Again, Georgia Hollister Isman, to talk about the campaign for earned sick days. So I can hear her behind the stage here, and she's made it in. So thank you for coming in.
Oh, thanks. I'm sorry to be a moment late.
Well, it's the city. It's constantly moving. Actually, when the governor was on, the Yellow Jackets who work to kind of clean up the city were on the window and waving, and she was waving back. So there's always a lot going on in the studio here. So. And I know a lot going on with you.
Yeah, it's a busy year, but we're excited about things happening in the legislature this legislative season. Especially, we have a campaign for earned sick days, which is a really important piece of legislation that we are really campaigning for the first time in Rhode Island. Our neighbors in Connecticut and Massachusetts have it, which is employees are able to earn, as they work, paid time off to stay home with themselves if they're sick and recover, or with a family member or loved one who's sick, or also if they're escaping from situations of domestic violence. So it's a really important, really pretty basic workplace protection, and we're really excited about the possibility of getting it done in Rhode Island this legislative session.
You talk about Connecticut and Massachusetts. Do you know nationwide what those numbers are for?
Yeah, I believe it's 10 states and also a whole bunch of other, couple dozen more cities have done it. So lots of places have done it at the city level. In Rhode Island, I think it makes sense for it to be a statewide policy, especially since both of our neighboring states have it and have had it for a little while.
Now, what do you have to say to folks who point to it and say it's fiscally difficult for employers, businesses, small business, large business? What do you have to say to the detractors that say, and you've encountered them all the time, that say that that can't be afforded?
The evidence is actually pretty strong that it is something that benefits business. The benefits of it are a little less direct than the costs, perhaps, but you benefit in terms of you have less employee turnover if people don't lose their jobs because they're sick. You don't have to hire and advertise and train new employees, so that actually saves money. You get increased employee loyalty, and people aren't coming to work sick, which means they aren't coming to work and working not as productively or getting their coworkers sick, all of which has costs in terms of reduced productivity. So I think the evidence is across the country when this has been implemented, employers afterwards, even ones who started off being like, oh God, I don't know, this seems scary, saying, actually, this is a pretty good bang for the buck. Like, we spend a little bit to take care of our people, but we get back a lot of benefit in terms of productivity and lack of turnover and loyalty and those kinds of things.
And talk to us about your efforts up at the State House. What are you hearing, for instance, from the Speaker's office?
Yeah, I haven't had a conversation with him directly about it recently, but what we hear is some openness there. There are a lot of state legislators who are interested in this and have been pretty vocal about it. And so they pay attention when their members care about something. But, we have a lot of work to do and a lot of people still to talk to. So we're by no means done. It's a long session of campaigning for this. And as you know, these things tend to pass in the springtime.
Yes. And so I'm assuming you've got your sort of game plan played out for when things happen. And do you expect lots of folks to turn out in support of this at that time when there's hearings to consider it? Do you have events planned? Talk to us about your blocking and tackling.
We just had a big kickoff event up at the State House a couple weeks ago with maybe 100 folks at it. We're also working a lot just in communities in terms of people talking to their neighbors, sending postcards, making phone calls to their legislators, doing a lot of local stuff. We'll probably have some additional press events. We're sort of working on the plan for that. There'll be a few between now and then. But yeah, I do think it's something that's broadly popular and that a lot of folks are pretty energized about doing this year.
And this is the big main goal of Rhode Island Working Families.
This is our legislative priority this year. We have other things we'll work on, of course, but this is the one that we're really sort of putting our shoulder into in this legislative session.
Yes, so, we saw you kind of back after the election when you were bringing letters around to the delegation concerned about the Trump administration. Now, a month into the Trump administration, seeing you again at the Senator Whitehouse's event at Nathan Bishop.
Yeah.
What do you anticipate moving forward addressing issues on the federal level? Just, staying vigilant, staying active. but you're going to be getting involved that way as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. This is a huge other piece of work that we're doing, is this work around the resistance to some of the really scary and dangerous parts of the President Trump's agenda. So part of that is continuing to have conversations and hold our federal elected officials accountable to really doing everything they can to hold back the worst parts of the Trump agenda and sort of not put Rhode Island's seal of approval on things that are really against Rhode Island's values. So that's one piece. You saw that at Nathan Bishop. There was a big town hall this past weekend with
Providence,
with hundreds of people at it, and you could sort of hear that again. We're also working on making sure that those values that the Trump administration has been advancing don't sort of creep their way into Rhode Island politics. We're working right now on an effort against a bill that's been filed here that would make it a crime for local officials not to report undocumented immigrants to ICE. Mm-hmm. So that's an example of something that's a big part of the Trump administration. We haven't really had it so much here in Rhode Island, but it's sort of starting to creep in. So holding a line in the sand on those things and saying that those aren't our values here, those things should have no place in Rhode Island politics, that's a big piece of work we're doing too.
So you said you've been vigilant with this bill introduction here. Again, similar to the Earn Sick Time, doing a lot of communications, having folks reach out to legislators about this issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a petition about it, we'll do some organizing in communities as well.
Okay, very good. So, I mean, have there been any surprises? I mean,
yeah, I will say, I didn't expect Donald Trump to win the presidency. That for sure was a surprise. But also, since then, the good surprise is how many new people are showing up. I think that right after the election, we were part of this emergency meeting that has turned into this resist hate group where 1,000 people showed up. And then month after month, we've been having those meetings, and hundreds and sometimes more than 1,000 people are showing up at those, and that kind of sustained activism and new volunteers coming up, that's different than what we've seen and encountered, that I've seen and encountered in all my years of organizing, and it's actually exciting. You wish that it weren't in response to something that people were scared about, but I do think it's a very different moment in political reality right now, and new things are possible.
And so I think Go Local had named you one of 17 to watch in 2017.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, everywhere you turn around, there's just, again, stuff going on around the state. Do you have any organizing events coming up or town hall meetings, or do you want folks to check out the Working Families Facebook page?
Interested in a couple things. If you're interested in the resistance stuff, there's a big resist hate meeting coming up at 2:00 in the afternoon at Hope High School on the 25th. So that's a good way to sort of check into that federal level and how that connects to the local level organizing. If you're interested in Earned Sick Time, I would check out the Working Families Facebook page and website. We're working on a special Earned Sick Days website, but it hasn't quite done yet. So there'll be more stuff up there as we go along, but definitely lots of ways to plug in on that, either volunteering or online or telling your story. Lots of people, everybody gets sick. Lots of people have stories about how their employer reacted well or badly to that. And so folks being willing to tell those stories on social media, in the press, is another really important way people can engage.
Well, I appreciate your coming in and talking with folks a little bit about what your agenda is. I'm sure we'll be talking moving forward, seeing you at events. But again, really, this today was to talk a lot about your support for the Earn Sick Time. And as Georgia mentioned, lots of information available on your Facebook page. So yeah, come back in, tell us what else is